We're joined by Steven Espinoza, former head of Showtime Sports, but still very much involved with boxing.
Can't get rid of me, right?
We're here at the Canelo Alvarez Jaime Munguia press conference, just wrapped up. Steven, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what you're up to these days. So for the record, what is Steven Espinoza's involvement in boxing in 2024?
So right now I'm helping with PBC, handle the production. There's a lot to be done. Obviously before Showtime handled all the TV production. It's a different model with Amazon. It's a different model with a lot of the streamers. So PBC's got to build their in-house production team. So it's building a production from scratch, from behind the scenes, the crew, all the way up through on-air talent. So that's what's keeping me busy now, is sort of doing that, making sure it's the best it can be for March 30th and May 4th and beyond.
A lot of people are also wondering who the on-air talent might be. Do you want to maybe reveal a couple of people who've already signed on?
So look, I think that there's going to be some familiar faces from Showtime. There's going to be some familiar faces from PBC on Fox, and there'll probably be a couple of new faces that aren't from either. So I think the key is, look, let's take the best of what works, freshen it up a little bit, sort of like what we did with the preview show, which is similar to All Access in some ways, but very different in other ways. So the idea is, let's take the opportunity to freshen up, to innovate, and bring something new to the sport.
Mm-hmm. How many shows can we expect on Amazon this year?
At this point, it's 12 to 14, and it'll be a mix. I know the first couple have been pay-per-views, but it'll definitely be a mix of non-pay-per-view and pay-per-view. The non-pay-per-view, being Amazon Prime, so anybody who subscribes to Prime is getting those, and then obviously for the pay-per-views, anybody can buy those whether you're a subscriber or not.
I'm sure the schedule will be announced pretty soon, but I'm sure we'll also see the usual suspects from PBC. Who are some of the headlining attractions that we could look forward to?
Well, I mean, look, everyone's asking about Tank, and he'll be up, pretty soon. Everybody's asking about David Benavidez, and Boots Ennis, and I think those are the, 2 or 3 of the ones who will be, announced pretty shortly. I think, before long we'll know exactly where those 3 fighters are going to be, probably within the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm. And you've been involved working with Canelo directly, been involved with several of his promotions as well. What do you think were the ultimate deciding factors for him to return back to PBC and sign for this fight with Munguia?
Yeah, look, it sort of says a lot about sort of the atmosphere around the sport nowadays. And everybody wants to jump to conclusions. Everybody wants to say, whether it's like, I've got the scoop, or I know what's going on. It's like, PBC's out of money. Canelo is, not doing business with PBC anymore. I mean, the reality is, it's a negotiation, and people negotiate, and then they look somewhere else and negotiate there. And Canelo's been in charge of his business for a long time. I mean, there's a lot of promoters who would like to take credit for his success, but he's been in charge of his career for a while. Mm-hmm. And you've seen him very selectively and carefully bounce around and find the opportunities, whether it's Showtime, whether it's PBC, or otherwise. So that's what he did here. I mean, he took some time, evaluated the landscape, and came to the conclusion that PBC offered him the best opportunity. So I think that was a combination of financial and non-financial aspects.
Mm-hmm. You presided over Canelo Canelo Plant just over the last few years. Now he's going strictly on the streaming route with Prime and DAZN kind of both co-distributing this through their respective platforms. What's a realistic pay-per-view number, you think, for a fight of this magnitude?
Look, I think we see Canelo sort of in the high 6 figures, million range. That's where he typically is on his bigger fights on traditional platforms. He's got other platforms that's been slightly lower, but certainly with Showtime, he's been in the high 6 and low 7. And I think this is a fantastic fight. There's a real question here. You've got a young, strong challenger, very popular. The last time Canelo fought, a Mexican in a big rivalry fight was Chavez Jr. And that fight was one of the stronger performers. I mean, it wasn't Mayweather-Canelo, but it probably performed a lot better than people expected at the time. And I expect the same thing out of this one. I think Mexican fans know and boxing fans know you get two Mexican action fighters in the ring, and that's something really attractive.
You're a boxing fan by heart. Your ultimate prediction, how do you see this fight unfolding?
Here's interesting. Look, I'm not comparing Munguia to Bivol, like, they're very different fighters. But there's a lot of people who look at this and say, look, he can give Canelo problems in the same way that Bivol did. Bivol had a lot of activity. Now, he's a very different fighter. Munguia, I'm not saying they're the same, but one of the advantages that Munguia has is his activity level. And that's one thing that is a good way to counter a counterpuncher, is you overwhelm them with activity, keep that pressure up. It can cause problems for someone with Canelo's fire. So I think this is an intriguing fight. It's hard to pick against Canelo in any fight. So if you're asking, where am I putting my money, it's on Canelo. But I think this is an action fight and something that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Can we expect Canelo David Benavidez at some point at this point?
I mean, it's sort of like the same thing before. Everyone wants to write the story before it's written. Everybody wants to say, see, he's not doing this, he's scared, he's avoiding. We've seen Canelo for the last 15 years. He doesn't run from anybody. He's not afraid of anybody. So, until he retires, I think anything's possible. Yes, we're all anxious as boxing fans. We all want to see Canelo versus David. But until, he comes from his mouth and says, I'm retiring, then, no one's going to convince me that it's out of the question. Canelo doesn't dodge anybody. So I know he likes to surprise people too, so maybe we'll have a surprise in store for September.
Very quickly, two other fights that I'm sure you're an involved observer in. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I've known Mike forever, worked with him in various capacities. He is one of the most fascinating people on the face of the planet. And at times, arguably one of the most famous and recognizable faces on the planet. And there's a fascination with him no matter what. And it's been that way since, the mid-'80s. So, for someone to sort of maintain that hold on the public for that long a time is something absolutely fascinating. So whether it's Jake Paul, whether it's a movie or his stage show or his podcast, people want to see Mike Tyson. It will be a spectacle being in AT&T Stadium, and I'm not sure what to expect. I don't think anybody knows what to expect. But I do know Mike's looking good. He's looking as strong as he has in years. So I'd be a little bit worried if I were Jake Paul.
A lot of mixed reviews. They say he shouldn't be in the ring at 58. What are your thoughts with the general consensus there?
I get that. I get that. But I think I think there's a way to do this so that it's it's safe for everybody involved. It's still a legitimate competition, and people can get what they came for, which is entertainment. And that's what I see it. It's like is this a world championship fight? No. By the same token, is the Masked Singer the same as watching Celine Dion? No, it's not. It's entertainment. It's a spectacle, and I think that's what you're getting from Jake and Mike.
And lastly, another big fight that it's in the state you live in right now, New York. In the arena, you've promoted a lot of big fights at the Barclays Center. Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia. There's been a lot of mixed promotion with Ryan Garcia with his antics. Looks like Devin Haney's just has his head on straight, just training. If you were involved in a fight like this, how would you be handling it at this point? Because it doesn't seem as if there's a clear promotional angle.
Yeah, look, it might be one of the greatest, troll attempts of all time, or one of the greatest underground marketing of all time. No one really knows except those who are with Jake with Ryan on a day-to-day basis. So I wouldn't want to draw any conclusions. Certainly some of the stuff has been confusing and borderline alarming. But I know the team that he has around him, from his business people to Derek to everyone. and I know they have his best interest at heart, and I know they would not let him go into the ring if he was not fit to do that. So I've got to rely on the expertise of the people around him, and think that this is sort of a different way of promoting. It's not to everybody's liking, but it sure has a lot of people talking about it.